Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings everyone. Become acquainted with me, Arinka Putri Utami. I'm pleased to offer my study paper about visual student, how their representation in problem solving. Okay, I will begin with the introduction where I will address 5 topics including 5 mathematically standard process, mathematical representation, the representational function, categorization of representation, and student learning style. Now let us examine the first 5 mathematically standard process. There are 5 basic procedures in mathematics that explain the connection between mathematical comprehension and the mathematical skills that every learner must possess. The mathematical process standard refers to the method through which students learn and apply mathematical information. Problem resolution, reasoning and evidence, communication, connection, and representation are the 5 process standards. Mathematical representation. Representation is one of the 5 fundamental mathematical operations. It should be emphasized that every student studying mathematics must possess the capacity to represent mathematical concepts. Since the existence of representation in mathematics enables students to offer more tangible mathematical ideas, so mathematical representation may be described as an expression to mathematical concept presented by students in place of problem scenarios that are utilized to solve the issues they encounter as an interpretation of their truth. An issue may be expressed visually, verbally, or symbolically. The representational function. Apart from being a necessary skill for students to develop mathematical ideas and reasoning, mathematical representation may also be utilized to solve mathematical issues. Thus, mathematical representation abilities are required in which students may describe, explain, and build on mathematical concepts while stressing the significance of form. Additionally, representation is defined as the process through which tangible models in the actual world are transformed into abstract ideas or symbols. Meanwhile, the capability of mathematical representation may aid students in improving their skill by assisting them in constructing, comprehending, and expressing mathematical ideas. The next is categorization of representation. According to several previous studies, students are capable or high and medium mathematical representation if they meet 3 criteria: presenting data or information from a problem to a table representation, solving problem involving mathematical expression, and writing steps for solving mathematics in the form of the words. Meanwhile, students with limited mathematical representation skill fulfill gesture indicator, completing problems using mathematical expression and verbally recording the procedure necessary to solve them. The last is student learning style. According to the literature, a tiny percentage of children can properly solve math problems using representational skills, while the majority of others are poor in employing their representational abilities, particularly visual representation abilities. The variation in how each student represents the outcomes of their thinking is due to the fact that everyone's brain has unique capacities for absorbing, managing, and communicating information, which affect how people learn. This method of learning is more often referred to as a learning style. So, based on part of the review research, a GAP exists regarding the capacity of mathematical representation in terms of visual student learning styles to solve issues involving relation and function. Following that, we will discuss the method section. The study examines how individuals with visual learning styles may use their mathematical representation abilities to solve issues involving relation and function. This is a kind of research, descriptive qualitative research, and the participants in this study were chosen based on the requirement of the research, namely class 9 students who had been given information on relation and function and who exhibited a visual learning style. The instrument that I utilized in this research were a questionnaire on learning style and a test of mathematical representation ability. This exam is intended to assess student mathematical representation ability using indication of such ability. The following are indication of mathematical representation competence. There are three aspects to representation, which include the following: verbal, visual, and symbolic. The indicator of the verbal aspect is write the procedure for solving mathematical issue, and in writing explain the answer to an issue using argument or consideration. The next indicator in the visual aspect is create picture, graphs, or diagrams to aid in clarification and solution of problem. And the indicator of symbolic aspect is present a formula or question and calculate in order to solve issue. The following is an illustration of the kind of test instrument utilized in this research. The two questions I create were contextual in nature. In order to get a better grasp of student comprehension, students are required to express their response in the form of a row diagram, Cartesian diagram, or set of consecutive pairs in both equations. Okay, the next is result subject A1. Number 1. A1 responded to question 1A by sketching on a row diagrams. In general, A1 row diagram is accurate nevertheless. A1 fails to document the relation established in presenting the row diagram. Additionally, A1 responded to fully question 1B, since A1 changed the sentence in the issue to create a collection of consecutive pair set. It's simply that A1 misspelled the set of consecutive pairs like this, while it should be read like this. The next is number 1C. A1 responded by describing a Cartesian diagram without specifying the relation that were included into the Cartesian diagram. Number 2. A1 seems to be perplexed in identifying the three relations that may be derived from the issue. A1 generates an row diagram without recording the relations that are formed. Additionally, A1 writes just a few statements from the issue. When creating a collection of consecutive pairings, such as Vira favorite food are jingo rice, Ochi favorite food are chicken steak, etc. In response to question 2, A1 creates a Cartesian diagram without recording the relations that are included in the Cartesian diagram. The next is result subject A2. For number 1 and 2, A2 seemed to be having trouble comprehending the question and giving the desired response. Consider the responses provided. A2 respond to question 1 and 2 independently of the relation and function materials. Based on the answer provided by A2, it can be concluded that A2 has a poor mathematical representation ability. This is further supported by the fact A2 doesn't provide answer to problem 1 and 2 via the use row diagram, Cartesian diagram, or set of consecutive pairs. Okay, next about result subject 83 number 1. 83 automatically generates an row diagram without recording the relation that are established. Additionally, in question 1b, 83 properly writes the set of consecutive pairs since the set of consecutive pairs starts with curly bracket. In response to question 1c, A3 responded by describing a Cartesian diagram without specifying the relations that were included into the Cartesian diagram. Number 2, on issue 2, subject A3, they seem to be perplexed about identifying the three relations that may be derived from the problem. A3 generate an row diagram with recording the relations that are formed, while A3 has written the set of consecutive pairs properly. When it comes to creating the Cartesian diagram, in problem number 2, A3 creates the Cartesian diagram without recording the relations that are included in the Cartesian diagram. So, the conclusion of this study is, in general, mathematical representation skill in the element of verbal representation isn't mastered or is still poor. The subject doesn't rewrite the information included in the issue, nor do they document the action involved in resolving the problem. Overall, the skill of mathematical representation that students with visual learning styles master the most is the visual component or graphic. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.